Oh yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. This is Humanitarian Chronicles, a podcast I started to highlight the plight of humanitarians. Wow, that came out nicely. Of humanitarians, the things we go through, the things we struggle with, the things we struggle through, the fights we have with ourselves internally, and how sometimes we cope or don't cope. And of course, it's a plea for mental health support for all humanitarians and emergency responders wherever they are, especially the national staff who sometimes do not have anywhere else to go apart from stay in their country, in their location, as they are struggling with the crisis, but at the same time providing help to others who are in the same crisis. My name is Dr. David Wasambla, the Dreadlock Doctor, and catch me on my YouTube channel, this one, Humanitarian Chronicles. Catch me on my socials. The link tree is in the description so that you're able to get a bit more of what it is that I do. I am a medical doctor, 22 years of experience. I graduated in 2022 from Russia. I am a humanitarian. I've been in international humanitarian work since 2014, but basically there's also been some humanitarian work that I've done in Kenya. I ran a charitable organization called Cheka Mtoia Ishi, Laugh and Save a Baby, Laugh and Save a Child, which was basically combining my talent as an actor and using my medical knowledge to create awareness, raise awareness about neonatal hypothermia, newborn hypothermia, and whatever monies we're raising for from those events, from those awareness creation activities, would be used to buy room heaters, space heaters for neonatal units, for newborn units. The talent I was using then was my talent as a stand-up comedian. So I'm also a stand-up comedian. I'm a motivational speaker, but most of all, I'm a mental health advocate. I fight for mental health support. I fight for mental health for everybody as much as possible, but especially for humanitarians, that's where I am. For medics, that's where I am. And for emergency responders, that is where I am. Why do I fight for this? Because we do good stuff. Let's be honest, we do good stuff. We set up very good programs, especially for mental health. We set up very good programs for the community. We implement them very well for the community, which is good. That's exactly what we should do. Problem is, we forget ourselves. We forget ourselves, we forget each other, and then we realize at some point that we are losing people. We are losing people mentally, we are losing people psychologically, we are losing people physically who are not able to continue functioning in this field, continue functioning as medics, continue functioning as emergency responders, and then we are losing a huge workforce because they are not able to cope anymore. Why can't they cope anymore? Because, of course, the trauma has been cumulative. Why can't it be dealt with? Because there is no proactive mental health support. It is there, a little, in some places, not everywhere, and not universally. Okay, every university is the same thing. It's not everywhere. It is not proactive. Nobody is actually doing it without having it being done reactively. Something has happened, now let us support. So a program, a system should be already set up and available so that it is constantly available for people to seek out help. Why do I say this? We went for Ebola response. I mentioned this in brief in other videos. We went for Ebola response. We came back from the Ebola response. No one talked to us. There was no mental health support in place for the teams that went for Ebola support, for Ebola response in West Africa, 2014 to 2017. I know there may have been some organizations, but the teams I worked with, the organizations I worked with, did not have. There were psychologists and counselors in the organizations, but they were brought in to support the community. They were working hand in hand with us, the medics, with us, the engineers who were there, with us, the WASH people, the IPC people, infection prevention and control people. They were working with us together as part of the program that was supporting the community. Again, I said, that is good, that's right, that's what we should be doing. But there was nobody in place for us when we now needed help. Completely. We had a psychologist who was in our team, Robert, wherever you are, when we came back from Ebola response, I may have mentioned this, may not, it's in the book. It was a requirement that you stay away from your family in solitary for at least 14 days to make sure that you've come back home and you don't have the virus and you don't get to spread it to people. So 3 of us made a decision. That was Robert. We used to call him Psycho. Robert was called Psycho because he was a psychologist. So we decided he's crazy enough, he's a psycho because he deals with psychos, and yeah, just like us. Then there was Peter, aka Gaino, aka many other names. I will not mention his nicknames. The day you meet him, you'll meet him. He's in the book. If you know the person who, if you haven't read, there's somebody who made yogurt in his room. Okay, didn't make it. He left a glass of milk standing on a table in his room and told me, "What a yogurt." and it stayed for days. And he said ikioza sasa vizuri itakuwa yogurt. And several days later, we actually were, and it was there. He refused to move, and he told the cleaners not to touch it. That is his yogurt fermenting, and it fermented. Basically, it rotted. Then the day it was ready, he invited me to go and witness and support and probably applaud him and drink with him. The drinking part I did not. The applause part I did not, because I mean, you decrease. Okay. Anyway, so he drank it. I actually witnessed him drinking, and Hakunyuria, he's alive. He's alive. This is the guy I told you I've written about in a book. Who, when we meet, we're like, hey, Buddha, daddy. That's our greeting, and then now other things come around, and of course, it's usually mostly insults. We can have a whole conversation of 2 hours, and we're just insulting each other, not fighting, but insulting each other, like dark things and horrible things as friends. Yeah, and then there was myself. So the 3 of us decided, let's go to Kilifi. So we jetted in straight to Kilifi, rented a place, and we were there for 14 days, 14 good days. We would talk to the family, call them, do WhatsApp and stuff like that, but we were there, just the 3 of us. We minimized going out, so shopping would be done, like we'd go either to the shops when there are less people out in the shops, so that we minimize any kind of contact, or we would have stuff delivered to us. We would order and get it delivered to the house. Well, we had basically everything. It was a wonderful place, yeah, a nice villa. We had our separate rooms, the cooks that were available, chefs available, cleaners available. The cleaners would be there when we were out of the rooms. Clean. Of course, we told them what they needed to do to protect themselves, because we did not know if we had it. Ebola incubates in 14 days. So the 14 days is an incubation period. If by the 14th day you don't have any symptoms, chances are you don't have it, unless it decided to hide and then pop out after the 14th day. So that was the whole idea of the 14 days isolation. So we stayed, the 3 of us. Now, we couldn't expect Psycho to counsel us, because Psycho was with us in the response. Psycho was with us from day one. Psycho was seeing the things we were seeing. Psycho was struggling with the same patients we were struggling with. Psycho was seeing the patients die as we were seeing them die. Psycho was being called in to go and talk to a patient who was too depressed, they refused to eat, and the person refused to eat until they died. Died of hunger, basically, hypoglycemia, and whatever it is that comes with it. Because he was too depressed, realizing he had given his family, he had transmitted the Ebola to his family and to other people that he had been treating. There was one gentleman who was a traditional healer. These people who are trained as community health workers, eventually become traditional healers over time. He was very, very famous, and he was among the people who had refused and said there's nothing like Ebola, and he continued treating patients. During the Ebola scourge, we were like, do not have any contact, especially without any PPE, personal protective equipment, with patients or anybody who's sick or you think might be sick, unless you're very sure that this person is well. So we kept saying that he was among the people who said, no, I will treat people because I am a medical person, I am a traditional healer, it is my job, and I'm sorry. And Ebola does not exist. So he continued. Unfortunately for him, by the time he was being admitted and discovered to have Ebola, his patients were in the ward with him in the confirmed ward. The confirmed ward is basically the ward where you put patients who've had Ebola, whose diagnosis has come back positive for Ebola. So this gentleman, when he saw his patients also positive for Ebola, he was hit hard, but he kind of still held on. But then when he was informed that his wife had come in, and one of the children had come in, and his niece, there's a patient, the very first child I talk about, the very first patient we had in our Ebola treatment unit was a very small girl, a child basically. Was it 1.5 years or so? 1.5 years or 2 years? 1.5 years, I think, if I'm not wrong. Was his niece. He came in after her, because she was our first one. Then he came in later, and then he realized, whoa, that's my niece, that's my relative, that's the daughter to my sister. So his niece was there, and then his wife came in with their youngest son, both positive. And the moment we told him, we had to inform him, because family members, they have to inform the person that your contacts have been traced, and and this is the result. And of course, they came to the same ward with him. So he got the result, and he came and he saw them, and the way you're looking at somebody, and then they disappear. Not like disappear physically, but they disappear from life. We saw his face just go blank. His eyes somehow just died. There was nothing. It was just a darkness we saw in them. And from that day, he stopped eating. He wasn't so badly off. He had fevers that were just maintaining very high, but that was all he had. He was eating, he was able to walk, he was able to function quite well. Appetite wasn't there. Of course, no taste buds were dead, or at least on pause for that period. He was quite okay, generally okay. But the moment he saw his wife and saw his youngest son, he still had 2 sons at home, who we'll talk about in another video. The moment he saw them, he just died inside. And from that moment, he did not touch any food. We would talk to him, we would convince him. He shut down. He wasn't talking to anybody. He just went, he switched off. 3-4 days later, he died. I think this was our first death. No, he was our second death in the ETU, in the Ebola treatment unit. It was quite depressing for all of us. So Roba Psycho was with us in this process. Roba was in the team on board to support the patients, just like us. So he was doing, of course, the psychological part, the mental health part for the patients, not for us. He could not do the patients' support and then also do our support. That wasn't there. So there was supposed to be somebody supporting us. Supposed. We left Ebola response, there was nobody supporting us. Nobody ever came. There were UN systems, there were organizations that apparently kind of like helping the helpers and stuff like that. They were never there. Never there. I'll be honest. Let's be honest. You said we are taking off the gloves at some point, probably not coming off. They're not there. And that's why I kept fighting for many, many years, because somehow this aspect is always forgotten. Always forgotten. People just assume we'll function. Because we always function. We put on a mask, we look like we are happy, we look like we're okay. We come and struggle, we go cry at home. Come back in the morning, struggle, cry at home. Come back in the morning, go to the pub and cry in the pub. Go to whatever dens, we go and do whatever we do to cope with the pain. We go and struggle there. So you don't see what we struggle with because we do it outside. We do it far away from the setting itself. So yeah, we couldn't expect Roba to our psychosis or whatever it was that we were struggling with. So we are here, the three of us, in this place in Kilifi, and we would wake, and for some reason, 3 a.m. every single morning, we were all awake. So there was a room upstairs, an open set up in a nice way, but overlooking the balcony, overlooking the ocean. And so the first night we got there, we arrived. I think we arrived to coast around the same time by flight in the afternoon. We went to the place, all these things, toured the place, rested, went, did whatever we were doing in the course of the day, had our dinner, went to bed at whatever time it was, watching movie, some on the phone. Then we went to bed. We went to bed like around midnight, 3 a.m. I was like, I can't sleep. Of course, coast is hot, but there were heaters, there were fans. I mean, the fans, the AC was there. So I walked up to the balcony area where there was a nice seating area, very, very well done. Walked up there and I find Peter there. I find Gaino there sitting, and I'm like, oh, dude, Kwani, what's up? He's like, I can't sleep. And then kidogo we hear feet shuffling, and Psycho comes up, Roba comes up, and we're like, hey, what's up, man? Kwani, what's going on? He's like, I can't sleep either. So, Kwani, what's up? I was honest. I dreamt about so and so. Then I was like, I dreamt about another person. I also dreamt about. So we were all having these flashbacks and dreams and memories of the patients we'd seen. Some who had died, some who had survived, some who survived, but we were not sure they're going to survive after Ebola, because Ebola was killing people during the actual disease period itself, or after people leave the facility and they go and pass away. I think I told you about somebody who passed away right at the exit of the facility. He was okay, he was asymptomatic, no symptoms, nothing, fine, eating, talking, healthy, jumping up and down, went to the shower, dressed up, sat down to wait for his family members, never got up, got a heart attack or whatever it was, and then his heart failed and he died. Many of those, there were many of that kind of clientele or patient who eventually survived the disease, but didn't survive the disease, so to speak, succumbed to it. So the three of us are there, and we're looking at each other. Who is going to counsel who? So we just begin talking. So that's how we counsel. You're just talking, we laugh about this, and the only way we could cope, and for the three of us, we have first of all a very dark sense of humor. That's the first thing. Which, I don't know whether that's good or bad, but that's just how our humor is. Probably honed by the years of going through all these dark places, so the humor just by default become dark. Number two, we would just talk and laugh at things, and that kind of helped us cope with the situation. So over the 14 days, it's just the three of us just talking, not helping each other in terms of being like, okay, so let me listen to you, then maybe listen to, no, we're just talking and hearing each other and just laughing at each other, and we remember the things that happened during the response, and we talk about the joke about Mangoda. I talked about Mangoda. I said the joke about Mangoda and how he lost his stuff and he had to borrow people's underwear, stuff like that. And we're like, Adikurudishia, we're like, I don't want somebody's ball sweating, stuff like that. So yeah, we basically helped ourselves out. I don't know how many others were able to do that or can do that generally. I don't know how many others can convert the situation into a joke like we do, which we do with everything. I at least know I do that. I know Gyno does that. Psycho is gone for a long time. Maybe he became a serious person after we left. We parted ways. I don't know. Yeah. So there has been no counseling. Now back to why this episode is happening today. Traumas and triggers, part 4, I believe is part 4, is to talk about family members that we leave behind, our close ones that we leave behind when we go for missions. You may tell me if you're a family member or a close one, a relative, a friend, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever it is that is the case for you, and you're humanitarian as they go and come back. Do they change? Because there is a change. There is a transformation that we ourselves do not see as humanitarians. We do not know. It happens very subtly. We don't have an idea what has happened, why it has happened, until you look back and dig deep with a psychologist. So, Broken Souls Chronicles of a Humanitarian Health Worker is my second book, recently released about 6 months ago. It's on the shelves. Nuria Bookstore has it. Kibanga Books has it. It's on Amazon.com. It's also on Kobo.com. I don't know how much Kobo.com is doing. I haven't been able to track and figure out how many. I know at least one was sold. One was bought on Kobo.com. I don't know how much. How much else? I have not seen them submitting anything to my account. Amazon has been quite active. So this book, you see that's me. That guy there is me. Yeah. So anyway, so this is a book that highlights the plight. I talked about it at the beginning, right? Didn't I? Yeah, highlights the plight of humanitarians, what we go through, what we struggle through, and what we need the most is, of course, some of us are jobless for 7 months. We need a job. What we need is mental health support when we come back from the field, during our stay in the field, before, during, and after. Basically, let's say that whole continuum of services, we need mental health support. Someone to prepare us before we go in, someone to be with us, work with us as we are in, and somebody to help us as we come out of the response. We don't have that. It may be there in some. I know there are organizations. I will be honest. There are organizations that I have personally worked with, not worked in, but worked with during my time when I was supporting the Gaza project with the World Health Organization in the Eastern Mediterranean Regional Office in Cairo, and I was in Gaza for several weeks. And I know organizations that were actually able to show and prove that they have mental health support for their teams, for their staff. Good mental support. Good because some of them had an HR person who had no mental health training whatsoever, had an HR person who is not a psychologist, who is not a counselor, providing mental health support. Now, it is good to allow people to come and talk to you about what they've gone through, because your HR, maybe it's confidential, and all kind of stuff. But if the person is not a mental health person, they may be also in the field. They may, because this HR person was very good about, not apparently, I knew her, I met her in Ukraine, I met her in Gaza, I met her in Jordan, and yeah. So I know the person is a wonderful person. It's a very homely, very caring, very supportive person. But maybe she's now trained, but that time, and that was barely 7 months ago when I left the project, she wasn't a mental health trained person. But she's providing mental health support. She's providing mental health debriefing for responders who have come out of it. Basically, from the point of her having experience as a responder herself, she's been in the field, she's been in the trenches. But it's still different because mental health support is to be done by trained experts. That's why I tell people comfortably, and I'll say it now, the wrong person to go to for mental health support is a religious leader, unless the religious leader has proper qualified training as a mental health expert, as a psychologist, as a counselor, as a psychiatrist. That is a different case. Because there are things that you need to discuss, and there are things that you need to dig through, and there are things you need to open up, that you can't just sweep out of the cup and say, let's pray about it. No. That's why we lose many people. Mentally, we lose many people physically, because we pray about things that sometimes need someone to be honest about, and need someone to change their life about and change their mind about. Story for another day. I'm getting passionate because you know my history. We'll talk about that at some point. Anyway, yeah. So a mental health person is the one who supports, a mental health expert is the one who's supposed to provide mental health support. It is good. I'm not saying don't talk to each other. It is good to talk to each other. It is good to have someone to talk to, because it allows you to at least offload something. But for someone to be able to dig deep with you and understand what it is you're going through, you should have mental health support from an expert. That's why families and close ones struggle. That's where I was coming to, and that's what I started discussing. Close ones to us struggle with us when we come back home, when we come back from the field, because they do not understand us. They are not trained. They are not prepared for this. I'm hoping that in the new segments that I'll be doing soon, when I get a proper studio. I'm planning to start doing something. I won't tell you the name now. Let me figure out the name, and then I will let you know very, very soon. You probably have seen a short or a reel running around about something new coming up. Yes, I want to start working with other humanitarians, having discussions, having these talks on the podcast, so that then we hear from them. Don't just hear from me crying here and shedding tears like a baby boy. I want us to be able to hear from my colleagues, whether military, non-military, medical, non-medical, anybody who's been in the field, who has had experience with humanitarian responses, humanitarian activities, humanitarian missions, to come and tell us the things they go through. I want to go deep into the mind of humanitarians, deep into their minds, what's in their hearts, what's in their mind. Let's dig through and figure out. And we want to talk to them because I remember a very good friend of mine, a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the KDF. I would not mention his name now. You know his name when he's in the book, though. So if you've read the book, you know who it is. If you want to read it, read the book and figure out who it is. An amazing fellow, I met him in Moyale in 2008, thereabouts. And yeah, we saw some crazy things with him. I think I pulled a few bullets out of his body and out of his team, stuff like that. So we were having a chat with him as I was now putting together the last parts of the book and getting his ideas for it. And he features quite heavily, quite strongly in the book. And he told me, we were discussing and we were talking about, so what about our families? And he said, Doc, bro, we are brothers, basically. Our families struggle with us when we come back home because they have no clue. They have no clue what to do with us. Because he said he would come back from the field and in his position and his rank as a lieutenant colonel in the army, he's trained on a daily basis to give orders. And things must be done in a particular way. And there's a hierarchy of how things are done. So he comes back home from a mission, especially from the mission, it's even heavier because in the mission, it's instructions do the ABCD, otherwise you're dead, you're gone, you miss whatever, you lose. So he comes back home and he's in that mode from the military. He's home, yes, with his family, he's in that mode. So he gets home and there's a particular thing he always watches on TV, but he's been away for whatever number of months or a year or 2 years. He's come back home and the family are doing their thing. For them, daddy is back and yeah, but let's continue watching our thing. And he can't understand why they're watching this thing when he wants to, he needs to, he should be watching ABCD. So he's barking orders at them and they can't understand it. And he's getting pissed off at them watching a show that he doesn't want to watch because he needs to watch a particular show at a particular time. He's given instruction that they should follow, but he's talking in a military mindset and these are his family members. They don't understand that. That's in his mind at that moment. He's come from mission, he's hurting, he's carrying heavy stuff in his heart, in his mind. And they don't know. So he is getting frustrated with them for not understanding simple things he's saying. They are simple to him because it's normal to him. And he's come from a mission. He's in a particular kind of, the adrenaline is still high, emotions are still high, he's still tense, but he doesn't know it because, you don't realize a lot of these things. You have to set your mind in a particular way when you're in the field. The family doesn't know what he's going through. They don't know he's going through stuff. So they can't understand. They're like, is this guy crazy? Why is he talking like this? Why is he shouting like this? Why is he behaving like this? So that became a problem and he realized that for himself. So that's when I said, yeah, we were discussing and we're like, you know what, there's a need for even the families and the close ones to have support so that as we are going out, they are getting supported. They are given some understanding, not by us. We can try and explain as much as we can. Maybe we can have a good way of explaining it, but I can't explain to you what is hurting me sometimes so that you understand. But if a mental health expert explains to you, the family member, you, the close one, you, the person who is going to receive me when I come back, explains to you some of the signs and symptoms of what it is I'm going through or what it is that is manifesting, then you will know sometimes when to ask, when not to ask, when to talk, when not to talk, when to keep quiet, when to stay aside, when to come and actually hug or do whatever it is. But if you don't know those, you then just assume I'm just being rude or I'm just being aloof. Many times I come home and I just want a quiet space. I just want to be in my room, doing nothing, just staring at the ceiling, just doom scrolling and doing nothing and just laughing silly at stupidity because I don't want to think. I'm trying to drown things. So I don't drink much. I drink occasionally, and be honest, not water, not tea, not soda. I'm talking about alcohol. I drink very occasionally, social settings only, and it's once in a month, once in 2 months. I don't need alcohol as a coping mechanism. I don't smoke at all. Nothing. No cigarettes, not weed, not nothing. I don't smoke. But I drink occasionally. I don't drink to cope. I don't drink to drown my pain. I don't drink to numb what is in my mind, what is hurting me, what is killing me, what is destroying me. I don't do that. However, there are people who that is their only coping mechanism. There are people who will wake up, go to work, and have to drink by evening. They've seen so much, they've had so much, they are feeling so much, and they need to kill that feeling. Otherwise, the next morning they will not go back to work. It's too much. So what do? They go and resort to alcohol. So you find people have come for a break, and all they need to do is to get out of the house and go and drink, or bring drinks and drink. And they're not drinking because they're necessarily like alcoholics and they're enjoying it. No. They're killing something. They're demons they're trying to kill. And the only way they know to kill those demons is by drinking and hopefully keeping them quiet for a night, keeping them quiet for 2-3 hours as they black out. Then they wake up in the morning and the demons come back, plus a hangover, plus other problems. And they have to go and drink again, and the cycle continues that every single time. That is my interpretation of what I see happening to my colleagues. I don't know what your interpretation is as a colleague yourself. If that's what you're going through, I'm sorry for that. Or the people who are receiving us and waiting for us at home, and then we come back and we behave in a particular way. We move differently. Sometimes we don't want to. We just need to, and we don't know how else to do it. I sometimes just want to leave the house and just go and sit somewhere, just meet somebody random completely that I don't even know very well, and just talk about nonsense or talk about what I'm going through. Then I come back so that I'm not offloading to my family. And so, unfortunately, sometimes when we are now with the family, with our close ones, we flare up. We overreact to something, we react to something irrationally because, we don't know what's ailing us, or we know, but we don't know how to bring it out. And then someone says something, does something, and then you overreact, you just blow up in their face, and then later you're like, oh, crap, what did I do? What did I do? And you try to backtrack, you try to fix it, but you don't. Many times we don't understand that is what is happening to us. The family needs to be given a cushion, preparation of how to deal with us. It's difficult for me to tell you how to deal with me because I don't know what will happen at a particular moment. I don't know how I'll come back from the next mission. I don't know what I will see and what it will do to me. That's the unfortunate reality. I keep telling people, Ebola response was my craziest in terms it was a fast international response, but also Ebola is Ebola. Ebola is scary. Ebola is 80% mortality rate. 80% of the patients you see will not make it. 80% of anybody sick will not make it. So if I contract Ebola, my chances are that 80% of the chances out of the 10 people in our group, in whatever setting we are going to be, I might be one of the 8 who don't make it. That was my reality with the Ebola response for the 3 years I was in West Africa. I didn't know what I would touch that would give me the disease. I don't know who I would touch to give me the disease. I didn't know who I was walking next to give me the disease. I didn't know if the beddings I was using in the room had been cleaned properly, or had been cleaned by somebody who maybe had Ebola and had the virus and it was shedding from them, and they didn't know and we didn't know. And then they put the beds and beddings and I come and lay on them and I get sick. I did not know. So I was always here. You're always you're wondering. So where is it? Where is this virus? Copy. Is it here? Might it be here? You had to walk around with hand sanitizer hanging from your belt, hanging from your back, hanging from everywhere. I had hand sanitizer everywhere. I touch this book and I give you to read. I will get a hand sanitizer. Not because I disrespect you or I hate you, but because I didn't know where you'd be. You didn't know where I'd be. You had sanitizer. If I gave you this, I would not share this with you, my earpods, because you might have contracted the virus and would spread it to me. Any surface, I would come here and I walk into the house and I had to clean this with chlorine, clean it so that if there's any virus. So there's always what if every given second. That was my first mission. Other than the fact that it was scary, we were told we'd seen what had happened. Some of our colleagues had unfortunately been killed because of misconceptions in society. Some of our colleagues contracted the virus. We had national staff who would come and tell us, listen, I used to work in facility XYZ. It is no longer functioning. Not just because it is closed during the Ebola crisis, but because every other staff died. Every other staff died. There's a lady that was with us. She was an expert trainer, an expert patient, because she had survived the virus. And so during the trainings, they would bring her in and she would talk about her own experience. It was a practical training, the trainings for responders on Ebola response. So she was one of those. That's how we met her. And then, of course, when now we needed her services in the Ebola treatment unit when the baby came, and we needed somebody who could sit with the baby 24 hours without having to leave and come back and dress up all the time. An Ebola survivor can never contract Ebola again, unless it's a totally different strain that no one ever knew about. So an Ebola survivor was the best to be able to go in because they didn't need to put on lots of PPE. They just put in the basic PPE, the apron, and that's it. They would not contract it and they can spread it to somebody else. So if it's an Ebola patient who is confirmed, then yeah, it made sense for that to work. So that's how we eventually got to meet her. But in her story, the day we were being trained, when we were meeting her the first time, her story was she was a nurse. I hope she's still alive. She was a nurse in a health facility, quite a big health facility. I think it was a health center. So quite a good number of staff. And one of the staff came in, went home, fine, everybody was okay. They had been seeing patients who they thought had malaria. Ebola looks like malaria, Ebola looks like typhoid, Ebola looks like amoeba, Ebola looks like food poisoning. Ebola can manifest like anything because it has all the spectrum of symptoms, until of course you see someone bleeding from the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, and other orifices, or yeah, that is not what you see that now. That is Ebola, that is hemorrhagic fever, that's Ebola. But before that, and that is only in the later stages, before that, it looks like it masks itself like anything else. Hence the importance of having case definition, so that you know if you see A, B, C, D, but you haven't had this in the history, then you have a suspect, or you have a probable, or you have a confirmed, or you have none, not a suspect. So she told us about they were treating patients as usual in the last 2-3 days, but there's an influx of malaria patients, an influx of patients with fever. So of course it's malaria to think about first. So Liberia is quite hot, and mosquitoes spread malaria quite frequently. So they keep seeing patients for 2-3 days, and suddenly one of the staff comes into work and starts puking, is unwell, and faints, or at least collapses, loses energy and falls down. So they quickly run and pick her up. That's what you do for your friend, for your colleague. You work with them, and this person just came and fell down. Pick her up, put her on a stretcher. They're like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I've been feeling bad since morning. I've had this fever since yesterday. I just had it, and I have a headache and a fever. But then today I vomited, and I was feeling quite weak, By the time this was happening, they still didn't know it was Ebola. They were among the first ones to start struggling with it when the first few patients came to the facilities. So many people died because nobody knew what it was. Many people died later because nobody then were following the precautions to prevent Ebola. Later, of course, things got better when now education was going on, community awareness, community education, a lot of stuff, Ebola treatment units being set up, responders coming in. That happened way later. But in the initial stages, a lot of people lost their lives because they did not know what it was. So they treat their friend, but the friend is getting worse. And as they're treating her, eventually now you take her to the ward. You're cleaning up the puke and all kind of stuff, and people are treating her. She's getting worse, but they admit her in the same facility because, of course, she's their colleague. In the normal wards, at this time, no one knows it's Ebola. The next day, somebody else falls sick. This one gets worse, another one falls sick, and then few others are getting sicker and sicker. By the third day, they have around 5, 6, 7 people who are now really sick in the same facility. But they all think it's malaria. Nobody in their wildest dreams thought about Ebola because they had never had an Ebola outbreak of that magnitude spreading that fast in Liberia, in West Africa at that particular moment. By I think the 4th, 5th day, more than half of the staff were sick. So they have patients coming in, but most of the staff are sick. Some are sick at home, some come and fall sick in the hospital, go back home. And they have the same symptoms. It's fever, it's headache, you're vomiting, your taste buds are not working, but you don't know, because most sicknesses, if not all sicknesses, mess up your taste buds. I think by the end of the 2nd week, of course, now full-blown incubation, it has incubated, it's now coming out. People already were dying by the 4th, 5th day among them. They still did not know what it was. They go to funerals, they bury each other, they bury colleagues. And at the funeral, of course, culturally, you touch the person, and some of them are Muslims, they do the procedures where they clean the body and in a particular way. And so, of course, it is spreading even more. So it's spreading out there, but spreading in the facility because already they had an epicenter. Patient 0 was in the facility. It cleared all the patients in that facility. It cleared all the health workers, not all the staff. Every single person. She survived alone by a whisker. And she swore never ever to work in a health facility after that. She saw everybody die around her, everybody fall and die around her. All her friends, all her colleagues, everybody she knew died around her. All the patients died around her. So she said she would never, she quit and said never ever would she work in a health facility. She could not look at a health facility and feel the same way after that. So anyway, so this is the kind of life that we lead sometimes. This is the kind of life that some people lead. So we saw her story, we heard her story, we saw her story, we saw her, we heard her story, we know about her. So imagine this person going back home. How do they relate with the family? She's a responder. She herself has gone through this. She goes back home. She's carrying all this. Well, it may be different for her because she and her family are in the same scenario, in the same situation. But then who supports them? Who supports her mentally? Who supports the family mentally? Who helps her come back? Now, I come back with such stories, and I'm coming back home. And how do I explain this to my family? How do I relate this to my family? How do I cope with this kind of thing? So people go through this kind of stuff. People struggle with this. People who have seen this kind of stuff then find mechanisms to cope. Look for mechanisms to cope. I am lucky that I can write it. I am lucky, like I've said this before, when I began writing this particular book, it was in Ukraine, in Odessa, one of the nights when we had been bombed the whole night. The city had been bombed the whole night. It was drones, it was ballistic missiles the whole night. So basically no sleep. Then I woke up and said, you know what, let me just start. Maybe somebody will find it. If I go, they'll find the manuscript and probably continue, or at least push it out there. People see what it is that Humanitarian has gone through. At least my version of the story. So I can write it in a book. I'm currently doing some jokes for a stand-up comedy show, hopefully this week or next week. And a lot of what I'm saying is actually from all my jokes are actually from my life and from life experiences, but some of it is partly from my humanitarian experiences, the stuff I've gone through, the traumas I've gone through, but I convert them into jokes. I usually convert them as just immediately after stuff has happened, then I convert them and write them into a script and keep them. So I'm now hoping to be able to share with you my humanitarian life, but in comical form, more comical form on a stage. So I'm able to put it in a script. I'm able to put it in a script. I'm able to convert it. So in my mind, as I'm doing that, it's helping me to vent it out. It's helping me to see the funny side of it. As much as it isn't that funny. I'm able to go to the gym and push out the demons. I always say, you accumulate all these demons of trauma, and then you have to get them out somehow. So I'm able to go to the gym occasionally. I haven't done in a while though. I go to the gym and push them out as I'm pushing the weights. I'm able to do that. But not many people can do that. Not many people have the time to do that or can do that. Even if they have the time, not many people can do any of these three things. So the people who go, when they've seen all this, they've felt all this, they've had all this, they've done all this, they need to drown the demons. They need to drown the pain. They need to drown the trauma. How do they drown the trauma? I can drown the trauma by going to the gym. I can drown the trauma by throwing hands at a bag, throwing legs at a bag, and sparring with somebody. I can do that. I'm lucky I can do that. I can put it in a book and get them all out and put the demons in the book, and hopefully they get exorcised. You know, in Ebola, when you expose an item that has an Ebola virus to light and air, it dies faster. So when I put them in a book, hopefully they are like viruses, they get air and they die. Not many people can do that. But the other thing is, even if we can do that, sometimes we are doing that, but there's still something deep in that doesn't come out. The pain doesn't come out itself. The focus of the issue you're struggling with doesn't come out. That one has to be cleaned up now by a psychologist, by a mental health expert, by a psychiatrist, sometimes if that's the case, by a therapist who knows what it is that they're doing and will help you dig to the point that you get to that part, that painful, most painful part, and get it out over a long period. Again, I'm honest. I saw my therapist twice, exactly 2 times, and she sent me to a psychiatrist. Not because I'm crazy, okay, not because I'm not crazy, because I am, to a very large extent, just like you are, but probably mine is way, way worse. I don't know. So I saw the psychologist twice. I went to psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist was to help me, was to figure out with me if I needed medication for any of the things I was struggling. If I needed medication for my insomnia, that was her first question. Do you sleep well? Do you sleep at all? I told her I do sleep, not well. 3 a.m. every morning I'm awake. That has been a routine for many, many years, but it got worse now after Gaza 2024. It got worse because in Gaza, as you've seen in my other videos, 3 a.m. is when attacks get intensified. So from 3 a.m., my mind has always knows something is about to happen. So I wake up and wait for the explosion. I don't know why I wake up now. But of course, occasionally there's a bother with a kinyambi making noise outside. It scares the crap out of me, literally. The kinyambi scares crap out. Anyway, so, okay, 8 o'clock. Yeah. Now what are they saying? Yeah, so we try to dig through. So the psychiatrist was trying to understand, if also I use any kind of substances to cope, so that then we are figuring out how to deal with that, and then figuring out what more needs to be done from a psychological perspective for me. So of course I don't smoke. And she asked me, do you smoke weed? I'm like, no. So how do you cope with these things? I go to the gym, I write my book, I write my scripts, and I crack jokes about it, and I drink occasionally, not to, again, kill the demons or to drown them or whatever. I just drink occasionally in social settings. That's it. She was like, cool, so let's deal with the insomnia a bit. So she gave me some medication to help me, deal with the insomnia. It worked, but it wasn't to be used long-term, and I also don't like using it because I tried the long-term options of using medication for insomnia. It backfired because it reaches a point where the body rejects it, and my body rejected basically all the strong sleeping pills and the strong things for sleep, and I don't want that because then you get addicted to them. So I just stopped. So nowadays I just cope. I sleep, I don't sleep. Anyway, I'm 51, so my sleep pattern is changing, so it might as well cope with that. Figure it out. Stay up as long as possible, be as active in the day, so that by the time I'm going to bed at 11, 12, I'm too tired to have insomnia and then wake up at 3, 4, 5. At least now the last 2 days I've woken up at 5. So that's better than 3. So anyway, yeah. So people come back home and you don't know what to do with them. So there is a huge need, and we'll be talking about that in the new part of the podcast, where I'll be having humanitarians coming in, medical, non-medical, military, non-military, general people who've also just talking to people who've just been in humanitarian settings. They may not be humanitarians, but they've been in conflict, they've been in those areas where there are outbreaks and stuff like that, to just come and tell us what it is they're going through. And one of the topics we'll be discussing with hopefully everybody, or at least with some of them who have gone through it, as I talked about retired Lieutenant Colonel. I hope he'll be there on the show, he'll be able to make it, and a few other people too from the military. We'll be discussing how our families need help, how we cope sometimes with our families, and how our families need help to understand, even as we are coming back, even as we are going, what it is we are going through. Because sometimes some of the struggles families go through and eventually things don't work out for them is because they don't, the person, the responder, doesn't know what to do, what to say, even doesn't know they're struggling with things and don't know why they're struggling in a particular way to relate with their family members. They don't understand why the family members don't understand them. The family members don't understand why this person is changing over time and getting worse over time. They don't understand that this trauma is accumulating over time and getting worse and worse, and this person is dealing with more and more demons, and they don't even know the demons are there. Or they're trying to hide the demons, or they're trying to fight them on their own. Again, even with families, we put our masks on, or we remove it, but when we remove it, it's way, way uglier than we want it to be. That's why sometimes we shut down. So I don't talk to my family in terms of, I don't tell them everything that happens, or at least not everything that happens as it is happening. We talk about it way later and in small bits, bite-sized bits that they are able to absorb, especially for my children, so that they're able to understand kind of what I go through and what I do and why I need to do it and why I go back, despite the fact that I don't love it. I don't love going to those places in terms of being in them, but I love helping people. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't go there because I need a thrill. No. Some people keep asking, hey, you're an adrenaline junkie. I'm like, nigga, no. I am not an adrenaline junkie. I'm just a responder. I'm just a humanitarian. I need to help because I know the benefit of help. I've been helped before. I know what it is to help people. I know how people need help sometimes, and nobody else to help them, nobody else to give them hope. That's what I want to do. That's what I hope to do. That's what I intend to do. Okay, at least for another 4 years, maximum 4 years, and I'm done with it. Then do other things, hopefully, if I'm able to have enough money for that. So yeah, we struggle. We don't know how to bring it out. I don't tell my family everything, as I said, as it is happening. I don't tell them everything, even after it has happened. And when I'm telling them, I bring it out in a way that it doesn't also cause them trauma, because the idea is not for them to be traumatized. I am traumatized because I'm in the space that I'm working in. It's not for them to also carry that trauma with me. That's not their job. That is my job. I took it, I carry it. It's my cross to bear, so to speak. Yeah, so we'll be talking about that. So please be ready for that when we start now ringing the bells and shouting about it. Yeah, it may be called. Let me just mention what I'm thinking. The name would be. It might be in the mind of a humanitarian, so that we are digging deep into what they are. It might be called From the Heart of a Humanitarian, so that they're telling us exactly what it is they've been going through and they're pouring out their hearts to us. It could be both. It could be a merger of both those. But basically, it's going to be triggers and traumas, traumas and triggers, and we'll be discussing with other humanitarians, so that you don't think stories are jabbering you, which I'm not. All my stories are verifiable. You can ask the people who've contributed the book, all know me. But on the other hand, you can ask anybody who knows me, who has seen me growing up, seen me in my career. They will tell you all these things are verifiable. You can go to the organizations and verify them. They're all verifiable. So yeah, but I want us to also have other people on the show who can also bring in their perspectives, because again, I'm not by a long shot am I the most experienced or the best or the strongest or whatever it is in the humanitarian field. I just had the opportunity to be able to put it in a book and be able to share with you, and I'll be able to now sit and talk, now that I'm jobless. And now that I'm free and available, because many times for a long time I've wanted to do this kind of thing, but I just never had the time. I mean, in between the bombings and the alerts, air raid alerts, and gunshots and hiding and going to the bunker, there was no time really when I'm in the field to do that. And of course, I mean, when I'm in the field again, my mindset is completely different. At that particular moment, surviving, stay alive and go back home and be with my family and my loved ones. So I wasn't able to do that. So now that I'm a bit free, I'm doing this, as I'm also hopefully pushing out the information through my book, pushing out the information through this podcast, so that people know, more people know more about what it is we go through. And we are hopefully, the noise we make will hopefully get to somebody, and we have proactive systems that can provide proactive mental health support that is available all the time when it is needed. Or, as Dr. Fester said on Dr. Quick One, wonderful, Darko, kudos for that wonderful event that we did the other day. As he said, yeah, maybe it is for me to be the change I want to see. So, as I said, I'm hoping that once I'm able to raise some funds, I'll go in and do a master's in a mental health kind of expert course for emergency settings, so that we are able to, I am able to be part of that change that I want to see. Well, thank you very much for sharing with me, for hearing me out, for listening to me, today I didn't cry. I did not cry today. Maybe I didn't trigger any trauma. We'll see about the next one. So yeah, it's about families, it's about our loved ones, it's about those who stay and have to now deal with the humanitarian. That's what the topic was about today. How do we help you? How do we help the people who have to receive us back? How do we help them cope with us when we come back? How do we help the reintegration process when we come back from the field? And of course, when we're going back again, what is the preparation for that? How do we cope with that? How do they cope with that? How do we help each other, so that we are not ending up throwing hands at each other when the demons we are fighting are completely internal to us, the humanitarians, external to the family, and external to everybody, because they are not of our own cause. They are caused by the situation that we find ourselves in. There you go. Thank you very much for being here once again, and let's continue watching, continue subscribing, continue liking, continue sharing this, and yeah, let's push this information out. Let's push out Humanitarian Chronicles to as many people as possible. We see how it works. Yeah, also watch out. I might be on some international podcasts soon, hopefully. There should be one tomorrow. But I'll let you know, and I'm hoping they'll allow me to post once they're done with it, so that we again have this word going out everywhere. This is not just a Kenyan humanitarian thing, it's an international, it's a worldwide, it's a universal thing. My words are getting stuck in my mouth. I haven't had breakfast. Thank you very, very much. This has been Dr. David Osambla, the Dreadlock Doc, or the Dreadlock Doctor. I haven't put doctor yet. The Dreadlock Doctor. Your favorite shouting, complaining humanitarian. Adios and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.